So good morning, this is James from the Four Winds Earth Skills, and we're down here on the creek, the lifeblood of this property. And what they say is where water is, life is as well. So when we're out here talking about the plants of the land, we have multiple different ecosystems coming from the riparian area down here in the creek all the way up to a high dry manzanita and madrone forest up top. So when we're looking for medicinals, a lot of times we're coming down to where the water is. And obviously the water is giving life to everything. So we got a lot cooler soil temperature, a lot more moisture in it. And so when we start thinking about the plants and what we're really doing as far as reconnecting with the earth and making ourselves more harmonious with its spirit, the plants were charged to take care of us from creation. And it's an art form and a relationship that a lot of people have lost. They've lost this way of communing with the earth through the plant nations. And so today we're just down here and we're going to start identifying and maybe talking about some support for human bodies that these plants offer. And so as we're standing here, just the most dominant tree species down here is this, in the younger forms, are this big leaf maples. They're a great deciduous tree that's mostly in the riparian areas on this property here. And they form a really beautiful canopy over the creek, keep the water cool for the salmonoid species, and also work as a insulating layer of mulch in the air to diffuse the light that comes in here to maintain the moisture level. As far as edibility or medicinality to it, the flowers in the spring can be eaten. Is really not a lot to sustain oneself for, and yet it's a fun thing to kind of get out, do a couple meals out of big leaf maple flowers. Cool thing is you can tap these trees. Now they're not like sugar maples where they have a really high sugar content. I think sugar maples are like, 10 to 1, where you'd have to harvest 10 gallons to get 1 gallon of syrup. These are more like 30, 40 to 1. So it's not something we're actually able to make a lot of syrup out of, yet it's kind of fun to do every once in a while. Fun for the kids to learn. So as we move over here, we can see the soil content of this area is a lot sandier. And so even though it's got a lot of nutrients falling into it, it doesn't have a lot to hold on to. So you can see how moist that is. But when we find moist spaces, we're finding this plant here, which is native to this area. It's wild ginger. It's Osserum caudatum. And it grows in big colonies like this. And what we're really looking for when you're working with wild ginger is the rootlets. Not the rootlets, but the roots and the rhizomes. It's a rhizomous growth. So it starts in the center and starts working its way out. So this plant here, they call it wild ginger, but it's not necessarily like a Zanzibar, like a ginger that we might get from the tropical and subtropical areas. But what it does is it makes your body sweat. And not necessarily as like a diaphoretic where it makes our skin exude sweat outside. It sweats all internally. And so it's actually great for digestive irritability, supporting to like move plaque off of our digestive system, but also really just raises like an internal temperature to kind of move, call it excitability, but to move things through, which is really cool. It's got a kind of spicy flavor to it. I love the heart-shaped leaves and the covers that it makes. But really out here in Southern Oregon, we're gonna find this in moist, cool spots. But it's a really fun plant to know. And this is one of the things about IDing plants is you look in books, they've gotten better. But here we have two plants next to one another that have similar looks to them. And if you didn't know what you're talking about, you might harvest one without knowing what it is. So really get down on your knees like I am now and learn about what the characteristics are. So this is a sprout of a big leaf maple, as are these. They come off, it's always fun to look around to see who the dominant tree was, and then who's the offspring, and then the offspring lower levels. So this big leaf maple zone is pretty awesome like that. But this plant here is a Western coltsfoot, Pedicites palmitis. And the difference is this has a hard woody stem off the big leaf maple, opposite leaves here. This comes from the ground and shoots up. And I don't know if we could see that pretty well. And it's almost, you get to see the red tint to the stalk here. So this plant was used in smoking mixtures by native people. And of course, smoking is an irritant to the lungs. So I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. Yet if someone does smoke already, this is a great blend for like a herbal smoke blend, the leaves of it. So it's also a wet loving plant. So you'll see big stands of it growing through, and they can grow through the rocks and a lot of stuff. So people have been using this for thousands of years. And yet, as we've started doing assays, chemical assays of plants, they've learned about these things called paralizidine alkaloids. And they have an irritation to our liver. And so you don't want to drink a lot of this at this time of year. The smoking kind of knocks that back. Yet, in the springtime, when the leaves are really young, so the leaves will get to be about, I don't know, 12, 16 inches in diameter as the year progresses. So the idea is you really want to get them young. You want to get the first growth. So if you're doing a harvest, you can air dry it, bundle a bunch together, hang it in a cool, dry spot, and let it cure, and then put it away for the summer usage. It's a lung support and mostly used as a smoking blend. So as we start moving around, we can see little remnants of horsetail. And this is a really poor specimen here. They'll get a lot bigger. But horsetail has a really high mineral content. And with the horsetail, it's got a hollow tube in the center. So when we want to use this for medicine, for the silica to try to extract the minerals from it, which I'll use on the farm all the time as far as teas, I'll make teas out of it. Here's one that's just starting to open. And again, these are root colony plants as well. They'll start sprouting up, and then next thing you know, they'll start taking over. But you can see how this is just starting to open, and the leaves are still looking up. So when they get more in sun or they get bigger, the leaves will grow out and start dropping down. To utilize this plant, you want to use it when the leaves are mostly going up towards the sun. And as they're going up towards the sun, you know that the silica is still in an assimilable state. Once it gets too much, the silica is too hard. And then it can be used as far as like a sandpaper, scouring pads, multiple uses for this plant here. I love the plant. It's a great remineralizer for the soil. I will definitely go and harvest this and mulch plants and garden beds with it to try to reinfuse minerals into it. And at the same point, edibility of it or palatability of it is really only in the early spring mostly, or when you find randoms that are kind of young and small. And you can see this one here. This one's kind of blown out already. And it's actually not even looking that nice. And again, right here, next one. This is Osmorrhiza chilensis, or occidentalis. There's two osmorrhizas that grow down here. Some people call it the sweet Sicily. And again, we have flowers that come up and create these seeds. And once these seeds dry, you pluck it. They have a really nice licorice taste to them. The sweet Sicily has more of the licorice taste. The other one doesn't have it as much. They're pretty gnarly. They'll get stuck into your socks, into your dog, whatever. But sometimes you just take them and sprinkle the seeds around, help it to grow. And you can see it grows in patches also. And this is all from seeds that have fallen in the past. But you can harvest these seed and take them up and make a licorice tasting tea out of it. And so we really have moved 5 feet, and we've identified 5 different plants that have some sort of medicinal, spiritual, or edibility to them. Another primary species in this riparian area is the red alder. So we have a couple big red alders behind us. And it's hard to see the leaves down here because these ones are so big. Alders are like a primary species. They don't live a really long time. The girth that they've obtained here is because of their proximity to the water. And because they're able to get drinks all summer long, they can grow pretty quickly. They're great for reforesting areas because they'll throw a lot of leaves in the fall. They do have some medicinal qualities, astringent qualities. A lot of the native people from the Pacific Northwest use their bark, the inner bark of it, for dyeing. And it's a really great tree on that level. And it's a primary species. It grows up real quick, throws a crown over it, shades everything out, and allows all the rest of this to grow up into it.
What do you mean by a primary species?
Yeah, so if this was disturbed, so this creek is here now, right? The idea is that this creek could have moved all around this valley over time. So at one point, this floodplain might have been completely barren. And so these alders will sprout when the water moves over. They can handle wet feet. They'll grow in the creek as well, but they'll throw up, they'll grow quickly, and they'll throw shade over, allowing a cooler temperature for other seeds to germinate and to be able to take hold. And then as the leaves fall every year, they're adding compost to the layers of sand that got kicked up by the creek moving. And so it starts building up the soil fertility for other plants to come in. And so a lot of the maples will be longer living than the alders will be, but they don't grow quite as fast. And, you know, even something like this, the trailing blackberries, that's not a great one with the bird poop on it. But the trailing blackberries, we can use the leaves as far as a mild astringent nutritive tea. It's got a lot of minerals and nutrients in it. And that will go just kind of like a synergy for red raspberry leaf. It's not quite as good as red raspberry leaf, but it's abundant and it grows wild. So, you know, you go there, clip the leaves off. They will have spikes on the underside, and save it to make teas. It's just a nutritive tea blend, and it grows wild. Now, these are trailing blackberries, more of what we call a native blackberry. These ones won't fruit this year, but we will have a lot around that will fruit. It gives food to all the critters that kind of live around here. Now, riparian areas are pretty cool, because they're kind of wildlife, they're the wildlife corridor of this property. Now, things will move around, but we can go down to the creek here, and I guarantee you, on this trail we're on, we'll find deer tracks right here. And so, when we find these deer tracks, we realize, now, this is the cool thing about tracking, is that might not look like a deer track to everyone, because it's not the quintessential deer track. But we can look, it's a little smaller, so we know it's a young one. And we're looking at a stride. Here's the next track. So this is about as long, and this is a doubled register. So this shows that the front foot hit, the back foot came and hit next to it. So here's the stride of this deer. So we could tell by this, it's a fairly young deer. It's a yearling from last year. But because I know this land, and I've seen this a lot, they come off the hill, through this creek bottom, up here, and access the rest of the property to come browse and move up the forest. So this is part of their cycle, of their circuit here. And so the thing is, they will browse. Deer are not grazers, they'll browse. So they'll bite here, bite there. If they find something they really like, they'll stay there and eat a little bit more of it. Yet these trailing blackberries is why I started talking about them. Once these berries come in, these deer will come through and they'll start poaching berries. You have skunks, striped skunks, spotted skunks, possums, and raccoons that'll move through here too. And as the myriad of bird species as well. So all these plants have a way of supporting not only myself, my family, and the ones who come here, but the ones who live here as far as the animal nations as well. So I pay attention to that as we're moving through. If I see a bite off of it, like Wally asked earlier, what's eating that? So this has been eaten here, right? Not an animal, because there's no teeth marks in it, and the bite is so ragged. Probably a slug getting in here. And the cool thing is always finding plants that I just don't know what they are. Like this one I'm gonna have to figure out, because that's got a cool little flower. Almost looks like an inside out flower, but I don't think it is. So really, this is the beauty of walking around here, is just paying attention to seeing who's showing itself. And we can move up the creek a bit. And here we have a false Solomon seal. And you can see it growing around a little bit. Stellengia maybe is the family name, genus name. Yeah, I believe it's a Stellengia. Or a Simulacea. And so the roots of this, we'll dig one up. If we can, it's kind of dry. But they'll have these white roots on it. That might not have come up well. They'll have rhizomous roots on it. And so at this time of year when the earth dries out a lot, it's kind of hard to dig up some of these rooted plants. But they'll have white rhizomous roots that move through the whole colony. And this is a great sprained ankle plant. It's got an astringent quality that'll suck feral tissue out and support healing. So you take the roots, it's a great hiker's plant to know about. Take the roots, mash the roots up between a couple stones or a couple logs and pack it on your injury. So if sprained ankles is one of the things a lot of people talk about. Now, herbs are a really interesting thing, and one of the things I really want to talk to people about as they are getting involved and getting down on their knees and walking around the forest. Refer to books, which is fantastic. The best idea is to get out there with a knowledgeable person who knows the area and has direct experience with the plants. If you're going to go solely off books, I encourage you to cross-reference a bunch. And the thing about plant medicine, which I tell you what a lot of this is good for in my experience, it's not at all trying to diagnose or treat people's injuries, so don't use that from this video, please. Yet, use it as a catalyst to get out there and experience it yourself. Because plants will react to different people different ways. And the only way you're going to know how it reacts with you is to get out there and make a relationship with it. So the way it might work with you, Wally, is different than the way it would work with me. And it might be the same, it might be different. But the only way we'll know is getting out there and doing it. Yeah.
You talked about the viability of, like, if I were to crush up this root today, how long would that last? Should I
It
use
doesn't,
it as soon
it's
as
an
possible?
instant thing. Yeah, it's not something you really want to hold on to. For the day, like if you're, I think about like through hikers on these big trails, right? PCT or ACT. You could pack it, you could harvest it in the morning, apply it, pack a bit in like a Ziploc bag for that evening. But as far as like keeping it for weeks or days on end, it's best to just keep an eye out and use it when you have it and then let it go. Mashed up roots will start oxidizing pretty quickly and they'll lose their potency pretty quickly as well. You know, as we start talking about primary species in these forests, and I look around, I see a Pacific yew tree and swordleaf ferns. And one of the things I love about these old plant species, meaning some of the earliest fossils you'll see have imprints of ferns in them. And spiritually, their family, their lineage is just an old plant, kind of primordial. And so it always brings me to that feeling of, wow, this has been here since the beginning, since the last ice age or beyond. And so there's a spiritual context to that I feel encouraged in strength spiritually by these plant colonies and plant nations. So that's what I think about when I see these ferns. Now, I don't know of any medicinal qualities to the ferns. Some of the different fiddlehead ferns you can harvest in the spring, yet it's a spiritual plant to me. It's a plant of making it through different epochs and over the millennia, and that strength that comes from that has a spirit medicine for people. So if you're having a hard time, go sit in a fern forest and really start receiving some of that blessing from the plant people. And the same thing with these yews. These yews are old trees. Even though this alder is 3 times the size of it, that yew is probably 500 to 700 years old, where this alder is probably only 60 to 80 years old. And so we look at these plants as elders, and the stories they contain within them, the songs that they've heard, the languages they've heard spoken, the things that they've witnessed moving past them over the years. You got to think 500 years what they've witnessed in this property. And to me, there's a level of humility that I walk in this forest with, always with all the plants, and yet some of these ones help to remind me to settle down a little bit, to open my mind, open my heart, and really pay attention to what's going on. Because if I sit with this tree and I'm open enough, I might be able to hear some stories about what's gone on forever. Or not ever, but for 500 years plus. And the cool thing about the yews is they will fall over like that one did, and some storm ate away the bank, yet they'll shoot their other branches up, and that will become the yew tree. And the awesome thing about this area is back in the 90s, chemotherapy drug was, a compound was found in the bark of the Pacific yew called Taxol, and it was used to formulate a chemotherapy drug. And what happens that I've witnessed is when a plant gets notarized for some sort of big medicinal quality, a whole army of people move out trying to make money from harvesting it. And in the harvesting it, they might not have the be a little bit unscrupulous and not attentive to the ecosystem around it. And so they really over harvested the Pacific yew and killed off huge colonies and swaths all up and down the West Coast. So this little valley here, for some reason, they didn't come. And I don't know why, but we're so blessed to have these Pacific yews. And it's not the same as an English yew, but they're very similar in their familial ties. Yet it makes great bow wood, hardwood to work with, great fence posts. If you find them standing dead, they'll last for a really long time. So when I walk through the forest, I'm looking at all these different usages of trees and plants. Firewood, fence posts, traditional skills materials, all of it. So, as we start talking about that, when the big leaf maples die, they have really stringy bark inside. I don't see any right now, but they can make great tinder bundles. If we find a standing dead, peel some of the outer bark off and strip the inner bark, and make great tinder bundles for a bow drill or hand drill. So as we start moving around the forest and we pay attention, we can really see all that's being offered to us on so many aspects of our life. And also we get to be down here by the creek.